Hey guys, I'm out here with my new bait caster, seeing how we do. If you've never used a bait caster before, it's pretty interesting. This is actually my first time ever using one, but if you've got any experience fishing at all, it's really not all that hard. The hardest thing you gotta remember is when you cast out, you gotta have your thumb constantly on that line, because if you don't, you'll get a backlash. So when you cast out, when you click that button and that line starts to go, even with that line casting out, you always have to have your thumb on that line, even when it's casting out, so you don't get that line, because that spool in there is a free spool. It's going to constantly keep spinning if you let it. So you constantly have to have your finger on that line, not real hard. So if you press down real hard, it's just gonna stop. Just a nice soft thumb on the line while it goes out. And the other thing about this bait caster is that I've learned, because today is my first time using one, is it's not like casting a spinning reel where you basically let the line go when the pole's like right here. On a bait caster, you literally let the line go when the pole's literally like 11, 12 o'clock. That's one thing you really have to get used to, but I thought it was going to be a little bit harder than what it actually is, but it's really not bad if you take a watch. That was actually a bad cast. Hang on. That was actually one of my not so good casts. It just takes some getting used to learn when to release that line. A little better. And just like on any spool or reel, you know, you will get your line. Sometimes it'll get loose, and sometimes you have to just pull that line out to just kind of tighten it back up. But I mean, for this being my first time ever using a bait caster, it's actually not as hard as I thought it was going to be. Yeah, that's not near as hard as I thought it was going to be. It's pretty good. Just trying to see if there's any big bass out here this morning that want to bite this frog that I put on. Now, the reason that bait's not going out very far is I still have, these bait casters have what's called this one actually has what's called a magnetic braking system. So it's actually set, here, I'll show you once I get this frog in here. If you look here on the side right here, there's a little knob, and right here it says max, and then on this side it says free. If you turn that all the way to max, you're not going to cast out very far, because that internal braking system is really slowing down that spool, and that's what lets you cast out. And if I have it all the way to where it says free, that spool is just going to spin and spin and spin and spin, and it's probably going to backlash like crazy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click it one more click and see if we can get any more distance. Well, now my phone's ringing. That wasn't a very good cast. Hang on, let me try that cast again. That was a little bit better. It does take, I will say this, it does take a lot of getting used to when you release that line, because it is, I'll tell you right now, it is nothing like just a regular spinning reel like you see wherever my pole is right here. It's nothing like a spinning reel, because like I said, with those, you release the line basically when your pole's right here. On this thing, you literally release the line off the spool when it's still behind your head. Like that. I don't know if you saw my thumb, but my thumb stayed on that spool the entire time I casted that. And then another important thing that I learned off of watching other people's videos was right when your lure hits the water, you stop the reel with your thumb, because if you don't, that's another way that's going to cause you to backlash, and trust me, you don't want one. It's a pain to get out. So as soon as that bait hits the water, you literally stop it. Your thumb is your own brake, and you stop it. But it's a very interesting setup, but I will tell you, it's my first time ever owning one or using one, and it is a lot easier than what I initially thought. And it's just, you know, it's just a dream to cast. Now I just need a fish to bite and we'd be okay. It's in the dead of winter, it's cold, so I mean, top water is obviously not. Now, I don't know if you saw that, but that was actually a pretty bad cast. But I'm gonna try my swim jig here in a second, because top water is not really what you want to be using for winter fishing. I mean, it's just, I'm just throwing it out in open water. I'm not even throwing it over lily pads or brush or anything. I mean, I basically came out here just to test it, the bait caster, because I've never used one, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm just out here throwing. I'm not really expecting to catch anything on a frog out here right now, because like I said, it's winter time, and I mean, I don't think anything's gonna bite. Nothing's gonna bite a frog in the wintertime. So we'll just hook that right now and go to my old spinning reel for a minute and see if anything wants to gnaw on this swim jig. So you cast, it's such a different way of casting, switching from a bait caster like that over to just a spinning reel. I mean, you get used to it, but it's just something you have to get used to. I mean, obviously this is what I grew up on, was, you know, spinning reels like this is what most of us grew up on. I mean, there's a few people that learned how to, you know, cast bait casters early on, but that's, like I said, that's my first time ever even attempting to cast a bait caster, and I literally did not get one backlash, and I've got 30-pound braid on that. So I mean, that right there should tell you something. I've never casted a bait caster in my entire life, and I just casted one about 20 times with not a single backlash. So I mean, that right there is a pretty good indicator that it's really not as hard as you think it is. It's only going to be as hard as you want it to be, if I can say that. I mean, there definitely is a learning curve. I'm not going to say there's not, but I mean, I literally did not have a single problem or a single backlash casting that bait caster whatsoever. So I mean, if you've never used one, I mean, I'm definitely not here trying to give advice, because there's so many people out there that have been using those things for years and they still backlash. I mean, I guarantee you I will backlash and get a bird's nest. I mean, it will happen. I mean, I don't know when, but I mean, it will happen. It's from what I've heard and what I've read. I mean, it happens to anybody and everybody. I mean, you might cast out, and just forget to put your thumb on the reel, and that's going to cause you to backlash. I mean, it's going to happen, but for the most part, I've never casted one and didn't have a problem. So